touch on some aspects of the college admissions process. We're going to touch on college essay writing as well. But what we wanted to do specific for tonight is that we want to kind of start in reverse. So you recognize that it is September, and usually in the month of September, there's a bunch of applications. There's the CUNY applications, SUNY applications, there's the Common App, there's essay writing, there's college lists, there's college fairs, and all of that. So what we decided to do was that we wanted to focus on some of our institutions that have campuses in Jersey, Berkeley College being that, and focusing on an alum to kind of talk about that experience in reverse, right? And so if you have questions, you can feel free to drop them into the chat, as we want to make sure that we're taking the opportunity to make sure that we're all on the same page and we're getting the most out of this, right? So oftentimes when we're meeting with presenters or recruiters from colleges, or we're at college fairs and so forth, you know, it's a lot of information being thrown at us. But one of the things that we often forget is that each and every person that you interface and interact with has also gone through this college experience and college application process as well. But very rarely do we get the opportunity to ask them those questions about their experiences and how they were able to navigate. How did they choose their particular major? How did they decide on their college? What were some of the ups and downs that they encountered as well? And so that's exactly what we're going to do today. So we have Kaliah Owens here from Berkeley College. And so we're going to start off with some general questions. But if you have questions that you also want to ask, feel free to write them into the chat. We'll integrate them into this conversation. And if you also want to hear specific tips about college essay writing, then stay on for the last 15 minutes of this session. We're going to go over the top 10 college essay writing tips to make sure that your essay is as strong as possible for any school that you are applying to. As you can see, the various colleges behind me represented, as our goal is to make sure that you know that college is for everyone. And we want to make sure that you're able to find the right institution for you. So with that, our first question to kick off our conversation. There are over 4,000 colleges in the US, right? How would you say that you went about deciding which colleges you would apply to?
Well, thank you, Juan, for having me again. And college for me at that time was really big. I'm a twin, and we were going to be the first graduates in our family. So this is something that everyone was very prideful of, very proud, and very supportive. My first thought was, I thought I was going to go away for school. I definitely thought that I was going to go down south and probably do an HBCU. However, when I factored everything into it, and, you know, whether it was money or family or exactly what it was that I wanted to do, I ended up staying. So in September, I wanted to go away, but come time May for commitment decisions, I changed my mind. There were several reasons why. One, I had a change of heart of what it was exactly it was that I wanted to do. Two, I was able to be real and honest with myself and ask myself things like, do I want to pay off student loans? I want to go through that every year and, with my FAFSA. And ultimately, Berkeley was the right choice for me because they were offering me a full ride. I felt more of a closer family-oriented feeling or vibe with them that I didn't really feel from most schools. Most schools, of course, college is all about independence, but with independence, they don't really emphasize that support and those resources that you'll need heavily throughout your college and academic career. Berkeley, to me, provided all of those. They provided the close-knit family kind of feel. They provided me, one, with money to go to school and resources, college career readiness, career services. We had student development, student activities all throughout the school that can just help you get involved in the community. And that is why I ended up choosing Berkeley. Of course, throughout my college experience, I chose a bunch of different schools. I made sure that my list was very diverse, very versatile, because I didn't want to sell myself short. And that is the biggest advice I can give to you. When you are going through these college decisions and figuring out which one is the right one for you, make sure your list is diverse and make sure that you're doing something that will help you pursue your dream and your end goal.
Love it. And you touched on so many different aspects of it. And for our participants out there, we also want to quickly spotlight the website for Berkeley College as well. So as you're hearing all these phenomenal things about this institution, We also want to make sure that you're able to see, what's truly behind that. And, there are a number of things that were mentioned, from the intimate feel, right? And so sometimes when you're thinking about the collegiate experience, you're also thinking about what you've experienced in high school, right? Do you want to stay close? Do you want to be far? Do you want to go away from your family? And then also the money. Money is such an important factor for many of our students. And we also heard something about being a first generation student, right? And so oftentimes, we hear this push of going to college, but how many examples do we have in our immediate circles that have already done that, right? And so that's why sessions like this that we provide for the Jersey City Public Library with GiO2College is really great for opening up the forum to have these transparent conversations. Whether you're in a school in which you feel that everyone's going to college and everyone knows what they're going to do, or you're in a space in which you feel like no one knows what they're going to do, that you might be the only one that's looking, right? It's very important that you're having these conversations. And so when you're looking at colleges, definitely take some time to explore their websites and see the different offerings that they have. Again, as we mentioned, one of the unique things about Berkeley is that they have campuses in a variety of different places. So the follow-up question becomes, which campus did you choose and how did you choose that particular campus?
I'm from Brooklyn, New York. And at that time, Berkeley actually did have a Brooklyn campus. So I attended school downtown. It was about a 45-minute commute from my home. And then as my school career went on, I transferred to the Midtown campus. But through the Midtown campus, I became very heavily involved. So I would kind of, tour around from campus to campus. So I've been to Woodland Park. I've been to the Westchester campus, Paramus, Newark. They have a whole bunch of different campuses in Jersey. And I was lucky enough to get to experience those things, whether it be taking classes or volunteering, for an event that Berkeley was hosting.
And that's such an underrated aspect when you're choosing a college that has multiple campuses that allows you to transition. Maybe I want to get this Brooklyn feel or a Midtown Manhattan feel. Maybe I want to go out to New Jersey and different parts of New Jersey. And what I'm doing, I'm not actually changing my institution. It's all the same college. And so for those of you that are from New Jersey, there's various schools that may have multiple campuses. Every campus has its own different vibe, right? And if you come from a family with a lot of cousins, right, it's just like visiting like one of your cousins, right? You're all family, but you're getting just a different vibe. And so that's totally great in terms of those insights as well. Now, when we think about colleges, some students will do it by location, as you mentioned as well, but some will choose it by major. And there's so many different majors to choose from. How would you say that you went about choosing the right major for you? And did your major find you or did you find your major?
I like the way you asked that question because my major ended up finding me. My admissions counselor at the time, Mahogany Kaliah, she was very helpful with me making that decision. I thought I wanted to become this big time psychologist and I was heavily pushing for it. I also always said that I wanted my own practice, but guess what I did? I ended up choosing marketing. Why? Because I want to be able to not only market myself, but market my own brand and my own firm in the future. So I'm still going to go with psychology, but marketing was the best route for me because I wanted to understand how to properly advertise and advocate for a business or for a cause. And marketing kind of gave me a little taste of all of that, while also giving me a taste of understanding consumer behavior, which was that little touch of psychology that I didn't know I wanted. So looking back at it, marketing was never my choice. Marketing never even popped into my mind until I discovered Berkeley, and I'm glad I did, because now I'm confident in when I go to pursue my graduate degree in psychology, that I now have the marketing skills to back me up and push me on.
There are so many aspects of your response that I appreciate, and I see Amina smiling over there as well. So oftentimes when we are entering these college spaces, we're thinking about that initial degree that we're going to get. Like, this has to be it. I have to do marketing. I have to do business. I have to be a lawyer. I have to be a doctor, whatever it is. And then you get there and like, oh, I really enjoy this in terms of its content. I see its value. I see that it can help me, but I don't necessarily want to go and pursue this as my career, but this is really just my foundation. But then I'm seeing this opportunity to then go to graduate school, which in many respects, which is something that's not often talked about, becomes really the space of specialization. That is really the platform in which you're really locking in. So if I want to become a lawyer, I know I have to go to law school to do that. If I want to become a doctor, technically, I'm waiting to get to medical school to do that, right? And so I didn't have to major in psychology to then still pursue my career and interest in being a psychologist, because I already know I need advanced degrees in certain fields. And the great thing about it is some of those things are only going to be revealed to you once you're in a collegiate space. You might say, you know what, I'm just going to try college out. And it goes from trying college to, ooh, I want to do some other activities and so forth. So, ooh, I now want to go in for graduate school. And now I want to go for a PhD. And there's just so many options that open up to you as long as you avail yourselves for those. So one of the questions that, often comes up, especially now, given the pandemic, is that maybe, we're a little hesitant to have those conversations. You mentioned, a staff member at Berkeley, Mahogany, who was there as like a coach, the mentor to like guide you along the way. But if a student's attending college in this pandemic where there's the social distancing, you're not wanting to come into contact with folks, how would you say your academic experience was while at Berkeley, and what insight or advice would you give for anyone that's taking like online or hybrid classes?
As honest as I can answer that question, when I was a freshman, I was straight A student, always on the president's or dean's list, and that lasted for about maybe a year and a half, 2 years into my college career. When the pandemic started, I had already began transitioning into hybrid courses or strictly online. However, I wasn't fully, on that track. And I'm not gonna lie, it was extremely difficult. It was difficult because for me, depending on which route you take, whether you want to get your associates first or your bachelor's first, you have different level courses. And of course, the higher level courses are left for, later on in your career, closer to graduation. And because I was, full-time, 5 classes every semester, and I was also an honors student, the workload was definitely overwhelming. I had my moments sometimes where I felt like I was going to give up. I definitely almost threw the towel in and I almost lost my scholarship. I'm not proud of saying it, but at least I can look back at it now and I can say that Berkeley also offers counseling on site, online. And when the pandemic started, I reached out because I was ready to risk it all, risk my scholarship, risk my future career, risk my, everything I worked for. But luckily, Berkeley was kind of like the wall that pushed me back up on my feet. And the counselors, I spoke with Kaliah, funny because her name was similar to mine, but she was really helpful. And not only saying, you're going to make it through, it wasn't as, simple as that. She actually understood, yes, this is a really hard time. I had professors that reached out, and some people aren't always that lucky to have a close-knit relationship with their professors, but they were even checking in and saying, hey, is everything okay? Hey, what's going on? After, my final warning of, hey, you might lose your scholarship. You need to turn in this, you need to do that. Someone was still rooting for me in my corner. They didn't fully give up on me, even though I had no work ethic. And I was honest in saying, I don't have the motivation right now. I don't know if I can do it. And someone was right there saying, nope, you're going to do it. You have 1 semester, 2 semesters left. You're going to walk across that stage. We got you by any means necessary. So yes, it was extremely hard. It was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. But looking back, I was able to get my degree this past May, and I wouldn't have traded that experience for the world.
See, one of the things I love about Zoom is that you have all these reactions. So those of you that are watching us on Instagram or wherever this is streamed, you're probably clapping and cheering and going crazy right now. And so we appreciate that as well. But this is why we appreciate these opportunities to have like these deeper conversations about the college experience, because there's this narrative of go to high school, go to college and get a job and everything is okay, right? But there's this roller coaster that happens. And, it's not often talked about. It's not often publicized. You're not going to see it on the websites, but it only happens in true dialogue. Because if you're on a panel, right, and, you have the university president there, you're not going to say certain things. So, oh, no, well, this is a highlight for the counseling department, but we still don't want to say that our honor students are struggling. No, right? But this is a very real experience, and it happens more often than is actually, brought up. And so when we talk about a college choosing you and you choosing a college, Sometimes there's an instance, and it sounds like this is a case as well, where you'll choose a college for a few reasons, right? Maybe I wanted to go far, but maybe I decided to stay close, and that allowed me to have like this connection. Or in my case, I wanted to go to this really big college, and I figured if I went to a school with 50,000 students, that was 50,000 followers I was going to have, right? That narrative. But then when things don't go so well, you appreciate being in a small, intimate environment where everyone knows your name, where you're not in a class of like 300 individuals and so forth. And it plays a huge factor, right? Because we may not want to open up, but it's different when folks have their eyes on us as much as we have our eyes on them, right? So if my goal is to get, this particular degree, but then I have a professor who's not only grading my work, but also is invested in me and wants to know what I'm doing, how I'm progressing, that makes a huge difference. And so as you're going through this college selection process, you're thinking about school size and why are your counselors asking you, does size matter? If you think about your high school experience, right? You might get sick of seeing the same individuals, the same faces. But in college, when you're not, perhaps you're a further distance away from your family, if you're living on campus or whatnot, there are going to be some things that you're going to encounter that you probably didn't think of while you were in high school. So having that additional layer of advocacy, having that village of support truly matters. And, just on the back end, I can tell you that this particular session was arranged because of Kaliyah's involvement with Berkeley, right? Where they're like, hey, we need someone to step in and to be an ambassador. Boom, hand goes right up. Pick me, I'll come on and I'll do this, right? And so it's a beautiful relationship. And, you mentioned before about HBCUs and that network where there's always a lot of alumni that will come back and give back. But some of that is driven by the institution, but some of that is also driven by the individuals. So you don't always have to go to a particular institution to find a certain thing. You can bring that energy, bring that commitment, bring that loyalty and advocacy to those spaces that you occupy. So we definitely thank you for sharing those particular insights, because again, it's not all a uphill or even a downhill road, right? Where it's just, oh, this is easy. I got in, I'm a straight A student. I've been doing this honor roll, dean's list, president's list, and all of that. But there's a story behind it that allows us to build character. And for some students, the pandemic was the first time that they encountered that adversity, whether it was with remote classes and so forth, and really missing the experience of essentially being in person, right? But one of the things too that's been really interesting in talking with students, even just about this current selection process, is that now when they're thinking about what they want out of college, it's very different than what they wanted before, because you can go on to Zoom and log into your classes, you can do Blackboard and all of that. But now there's so much consideration for everything outside of the classroom. So what would you say, in your opinion, was the best aspect of being a student on the East Coast, right? Being able to visit different campuses and so forth. What would you say make that different from going south in your mind?
It definitely made me appreciate home a lot more. I was one of those teenagers. I wanted to break free. I wanted to take my own stand. I'm used to always being labeled as the twin. So there were a lot of things with my identity that I was trying to feel and sort out. And going to school closer to home, or on the East Coast rather, made me realize that this is as much a part of me as, whether I want it to be or not. It's what molds me into who I am. And I got to, just explore my city a little bit more, doing different community projects, volunteering. They did a lot of food drives. We gave a lot of food to the homeless, and doing things like that just makes you appreciate where you come from, or, your background a little bit more. I I can say it humbled me. It definitely did, because I thought I was going to go down south and become this big social media star, and just the popularity was going to chase after me. And I learned that I am not one of those people. I am much more secluded, very more, I'm a homebody, as you say, and I wouldn't have learned those things about myself if I didn't, stay local.
See, it's that introvert thinking that they were an extrovert. But
Mm-hmm.
also a great aspect of it too, for those of you that are, again, in the Jersey area, you're like, well, I've been here my whole life. You have, but you've been there as someone under the age of 18. You've experienced your neighborhood, your geography as a minor, but now you're a quote unquote major, right? You're an adult. You're adulting, you're a young adult. And now you're able to explore. whether you're, someone that's, getting a car at like 16 and, being able to drive is a major consideration. But now you're being able to explore. And me coming from San Francisco, California to the East Coast, I wanted to just kind of like explore because it was like a extended vacation for me. Where I was like, oh, I can go to Maryland, I can go to New York, I can go to New Jersey, I can go to Connecticut. It's like, oh, you can just visit all these places. Whereas California is such a large state that you can, drive 7 hours and still be in the same state. But, in an hour or two, on the East Coast, you're in a different state. So it's a lot more bonding, which is certainly a great benefit of this area. And as you've heard in the experiences with the institution like Berkeley College, you can, attend multiple campuses, part of the same institution, and explore and get to expand your network as well. So definitely great resources for you to consider as well. So you kind of touched on this a bit in terms of Berkeley's response to the pandemic, reaching out, supporting students. What were some other innovative initiatives that you noticed from the institution side in terms of supporting students during this time, especially as we have a number of guests that are watching this session that are considering, enrolling in school next year that may have still some COVID precautions and so forth. So what are some unique things that you've seen from the institution to support students to still kind of facilitate that social interaction and engagement?
Well, everyone, most students, they always want to talk about the money aspect. One thing I can definitely say about Berkeley, I was a student aide at the time for the school, and I could no longer work at the time because schools and campuses were closed, and that was my income. Berkeley supported students, with different grants and different relief funds, and they were able to, help students kind of stay, I don't want to say taken care of fully, but students were able to still, go to school and get whatever supplies they needed for school, and still kind of have a peace of mind. Career services was also a huge help because during the shutdowns, a lot of people, that was something on their mind. What am I going to do? How am I going to find work? Career services was always reaching out to me with something, whether it was a virtual remote job. I had to intern at that time, so I had no clue what I was going to do. Everything was closed to my knowledge. But career services is another resource that Berkeley offered and heavily pushed on their students. And when I say pushed, I don't mean in a forced way, but they heavily encouraged us and motivated us to not forget about that or not give up on careers and jobs. And there were still, virtual fairs. We all have different career advisors depending on your major to help you out and kind of guide you through that transition from graduation to your, next steps with your job or career. But that was another big resource that helped me because I was ready to just give up. I was ready to say, you know what, I'm making more money at home anyway. So I'd like that much more. And luckily for me, I had a career advisor that always stuck her neck out for me time and time again, in the good, in the bad, in the motivated, unmotivated. And now I'm currently working for State Farm, and I graduated this past May. So, a lot of great blessings and opportunities have opened my way because of the resources provided at Berkeley.
Wonderful. And again, one of those moments where we love the reactions that we can utilize on Zoom to applaud and clap and cheer. Because again, it's no easy experience, right? And so I often share this with students and folks I'm interacting with. Even for the folks that have navigated college, no one has navigated college in a pandemic, right? And so this is all a new experience. So kudos to you all. I remember interacting with some high school students and telling them, listen, for some of the people that I went to high school with, prom was like the main thing that they're looking forward to, or graduation was the main thing that they're looking forward to. So not being able to have that and still saying, I'm still going to push through, kudos. Some people are looking forward to that senior year of, playing varsity athletics and so forth and having those things suspended and still pushing forward, kudos to them, right? And so just the grit, the resilience to still push through and to persevere, understanding that your goals are bigger than just this current moment is certainly important, and just being creative with the ways of interacting with folks, right? And so the blessing and curse of, technology, right? You always hear, oh, your phones are always in your hand. You're always attached to your phone. You can't go to a restaurant without taking a picture of the food and posting it before you eat. But then now this pandemic hits and we have to rely on technology. So, you know, technically it was a great thing for everyone, thinking outside the box of ways to engage and really reimagine interactions with folks, right? And so we never thought that we would be on Zoom for sessions and workshops and even events, right? Zoom parties aren't quite the same, but no worries. There's always time for that down the road. But the key thing is that you're still able to make the connection. So if you are someone that's, you know, you identify a school that's really a great fit for you, and, you know, you hear that, you know, maybe they're currently remote or they're doing online classes for the time being, remember that you're going to spend a good amount of time while you're in college. And, you know, with FDA approval, with the vaccines and so forth, a lot of those things are going to change. So if you find a school that's the right fit for you and it feels right in all different aspects, then go ahead and stick to your gut and proceed with that. But then also know that as you're going through this application process, right, because you apply to a school, that's not a commitment, right? So that's just giving you set options when May 1st rolls around, right? And so again, if you haven't heard of Berkeley before, or, you know, you've thought about it, but now you're hearing some great insights or whatnot, and you're thinking about leaning that way, it doesn't hurt to shoot your shot and just apply. And you'll be surprised. There are a lot of opportunities to either have applications waived or to just find other ways of being able to visit the campus, especially virtually, right? So many institutions have put so much energy into their virtual tours. So if you haven't been able to visit, or you're scared to go outside, or if it's raining or there's a hurricane or a tornado for my people in Jersey, guess what? You can always go either on your phone or go online and look up these campuses and see their virtual tours and get some insights. Berkeley has some upcoming open house events as well. So again, if you want to explore and learn more about the institution, you'll have that available to you as well. So other things that you've touched on, right? And I feel like you're going to expound on this heavily. In what ways would you say that Berkeley as an institution, in its dynamic, the individuals, the staff members, and so forth, the students, have instigated or inspired your personal growth as a human being?
I'm sorry. I mentioned Mahogany before. I met Mahogany very early on in my college process. And from day one, she always told me, I'm going to be like your big sister. She said, you don't have to be so formal with me. She made me very comfortable. I was very, you know, on edge when I first met her, because college is a big deal. It's not something to take lightly. And there's a certain level of professionalism that you have to carry with yourself when going through this application process. But when I met Mahogany and I met the staff at the Brooklyn campus, I felt right at home. And as GiO mentioned before, a lot of adversity comes your way during this college process. For me, a lot of adversity hit right before I graduated. And Mahogany and the Berkeley staff were always right there by me, you know, like my little family away from home. They always were checking in. They were always making sure that I was doing my schoolwork. Even when I became a student aide for the admissions department, you know, Mahogany was right around the corner saying, hey, did you do your homework? Did you turn this in? She made sure that I was well organized. She introduced me to planning with an actual planner instead of taking notes in my phone or putting it on a calendar in my phone, which is fine. But she instilled in me a lot of tips and strategies that have helped me become less anxious or less, you know, crazy with all the unorganization that I was so used to before, especially in high school. And it's really helped shape me now into the young woman that I'm becoming. I take care of a lot of things for my family at home. So I also rely on some of the tips and skills that she gave me then, you know, in every aspect of my life, whether it's academics, whether it's career, professionalism, whether it's family, friends, loved ones. There were a lot of lessons that she taught me, not only for college. These will stick with me, you know, no matter wherever I go. And she was also like a mom, you know, and likewise, if, you know, any of you are lucky enough to choose Berkeley, you will find that. You will never feel alone. And if you do feel alone, someone's always going to be right there to remind you, like, hey, I'm right here. You know, no one ever leaves you alone. And it sounds annoying because there were times where I felt like I wanted to be done and alone. But I'm really appreciative now that nobody left me in the dark. And that sense of helping one another or being there, being a leader, being, you know, a team member always have stuck with me because I'm an introvert. And I don't really grasp to people very easily. I'm usually to myself. I'd much rather rely on myself than others. And Berkeley taught me how to be a great team player, and to put myself out there. And these are things now that help me for job interviews or for my graduate interviews and things like that, that I never really gave a thought. I just thought, they're going to take me as I am, but I'm a little bit more out of my shell than I was post graduating from high school. And I thank Berkeley for that.
Wonderful. And again, I see some of you all taking notes. And if you're watching this, you're going to be taking notes as well. You heard the name Mahogany, right? And so when you're at a college fair or whatnot, even if it's virtual or if there's a virtual presentation, right, and you're in Jersey and Berkeley's coming, most likely you're going to see Mahogany. And so just remember that you saw this, you heard this testimony or whatnot. And what's great is that, in highlighting what, for all intents and purposes, is a director of admissions, understanding that it goes not just from your time coming into the door, completing that application, but also after you graduated, right? Years later, right? And so that's the beautiful thing about this higher education experience is making those connections, right? That feel very familial in those ways, right? Where it's like, this person is really not only a mentor, but it's a role model. I consider this person to be family, right? And you can actually have those types of connections. So, again, if you were thinking, oh, well, school is in and out. It's just about the degree. It's just about this. It's just about that. It's a scam. It's a business. They just want their money. They're asking to get vaccinated, all these other things. But no, there's a lot of components to it, right? And so whether you're a twin or, you're a single child or, you're the baby, you're the eldest, whatever, this is an opportunity to really expand your network, change your inner circle in many respects, right? You're going from, in some cases, you're the first in your family to go to college. That's okay. Because now you're entering an environment, you're entering a community that you belong to that has everyone else who's going to college, right? So it's okay to be the first. It's okay to be one of many as well, right? And so whether you're blazing a trail or you're taking the baton and you're continuing to run an additional leg, there's a space for you in this college environment. And so that's why it's very important that you're taking the time to do your research with the schools and to consider all these factors beyond just, the money that they're giving you, which is very important, with the location, right, which is important as well. But then also just the connections that you can have. What can I do outside of the campus, outside of the classroom? Will they have my back? Will I have these types of supports, right? These are all things that may not come when you're looking at a website. These are things that may just happen when you're visiting a school and you may not catch every single thing, right? I think when we're initially applying to schools, we expect them to have like this, meet this wish list, right? This is my Prince Charming. This is my queen. They have to meet all these things, right? It might not happen. But if they can get maybe 6 out of 10 of those things, 7 out of 10, and we can see how things kind of shape up, and you just give it some time to kind of marinate, So if it's a maybe, let it be a yes, right? But if it's an outright no, then let it be an outright no, right? And sometimes when you're going through the process, you might apply to a school because a family member may recommend it to you, or a counselor, or a teacher, or a friend. And it's not for you to say no to them. It's for you to ask them why. What did you see in me that connected you to that, right? And then just listen, right? Because again, you are the one that will be attending these schools. You are the one that will be taking these classes, doing the homework and so forth. And you want to make sure that wherever you are, whether you're doing in-person or remote classes, whether it's raining or the sun is shining, that you feel motivated, right? If you have to pull that all-nighter to complete that assignment, are you that motivated? Are you in that environment that you feel that you're really going to thrive? And that will make a huge difference for you. So all great insights. And again, change agents, right? So finding key folks at your schools. It may not be the particular service department that you might think, right? It might just be a person that you've gone through the admissions process with that just may remember you because of that essay that you wrote. We're going to touch on essays in a bit, right? But just finding different ways to make an impression. And that's what it all comes down to. When you're applying to colleges, you're making an impression. When you're in classes, you're making an impression. When you're writing those essays and submitting them, it's an impression. The interviews, it's all an impression to lead you towards that end goal that you have. So we definitely appreciate that. So we've touched on some of the extracurricular activities you've been involved with, and there are certainly a number of them, different hats that you've been able to wear during your time there. But if you can just expound on some of those student life opportunities, extracurricular clubs and activities that really enhance your collegiate experience at Berkeley.
From day one, I was heavily involved in SGA, the Student Government Association. And that was because throughout elementary, middle school, high school, I was always into something similar of the sorts, whether it was senior council, yearbook committee, student government. And I just always wanted to have a voice in what went on in my, community or campus rather. So I joined the student government, and I think it was during my first or second semester. I can't really remember right now, but it was very early on, and that instilled a lot of leadership skills in me that I didn't have a lot of confidence in coming into college. I was, like I said before, I was very shy, very to myself. But definitely being on that team. Now, college, one thing that a lot of people don't tell you is that you are going to be with people from all different backgrounds, all different ages, all different families, all different stories. And it's easy to see college on TV and kind of relate to that, but it's different when you're actually in college interacting with different people. So I learned to appreciate different stories and different backgrounds from other people, but student government also opened my eyes to a lot of social issues that were going on, whether it be in the city, in the country, and we tried our best to, make others aware of that. Another thing I was involved in was the admissions department. The admissions department was, my home away from home. I practically lived in that office day in, day out. If I was off and I wasn't supposed to be there, I was still sitting there. And for me, that kind of gave me a different take on the college application process itself. And I was able to help different family members, old and young, coming from high school, maybe 10 years out of college. I was able to help them better understand the college process, whether it was financially, whether it was just like the paper part of it, whatever the case may be. And then finally, I was a part of the honors program. The honors program was very rewarding in a sense that you were left on your own when researching your thesis. That was totally up to you. But I found a new love for advocating for children's rights, especially for the foster care system. And, that's a very spoken about issue right now. And for me, that helped me understand that I can't only be the one person to make a difference, but it makes a better effort when a lot of people join together and speak on, a lot of different issues. And for me, that was a great experience because I just got to meet people. And it sounds very cliche. It sounds like a very awkward answer, but it helped me just get out of my shell a lot. And now I'm able to do interviews without getting, the little tremors or the nervous shakes and second guessing myself. I am able to go into whatever it is that I set my mind into headstrong and confident that I am the package, or I am the candidate or person that you want for whatever it is that I'm stepping forward into. But Berkeley, for me, had me involved a lot. I lived there, like I said, night and day. And whichever school you choose, whichever school you try to get, your hands on, make sure you're involved because that time goes by quick. And it wouldn't have gone so quickly if I weren't involved, but it wouldn't have been that fun either.
Definitely one of those quotables. I feel like you're just dropping them throughout. The word was, I am the package, right? And so that confidence is what you want to have when you're going through this application process, right? And so we talked about, the impressions and, just thinking about the different ways that not only can college impact your life, but what ways you can impact the college, right? And leaving your stamp, leaving that footprint, leaving that legacy as well. And so in many ways, you're coming either as someone that has all these accolades, right? From straight A's through and through, and you're just getting enhanced, right? Or you're coming to just find that other missing piece. So that way, when you're graduating, you feel that you are the package. But at some point in time, right? I feel like that should just be a slogan on a shirt right now. I am the package. right? And so as you're a little nervous whether or not I'm going to get accepted and so forth, just remember, I am the package, right? So when I'm piecing together my life story, through the first 17, 18 years of my life, and I'm writing this in an essay, and I'm sharing out my academic records, and I'm sharing out my interests and things that I want to do, I am the package, right? So I'm coming to this particular institution as a complete person with my own thoughts, theories, and so forth. And I'm entering the space to be challenged, to then grow, to expand beyond that, because I want to be a better package, right? And so there's this narrative of being a better version of my best self. And that's what you want to strive for, right? So don't see college as like this enemy, right? This adversary, this obstacle. It's really this opportunity to grow and to enhance yourself, right? And so any school that you apply to, right, is considering you as much as you're considering that school, because they know that they're not the only school that you apply to. So they're going to try to compete for your interest, and you want them to compete. Why? That's right, Amina, because I am that package, right? And so that's what you want to keep in mind. Now, you mentioned something that I want to touch on for this next question about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So these are like big buzzwords, especially now. And you mentioned, child rights and foster care and so forth. Folks that may be coming out of school, out of high school, going right into college. Sometimes people take some time off, right? Which is a response to the pandemic, or maybe they're encountering adversity beforehand. And they say, you know what, I'd rather go and work and come on the campus when I can have that traditional experience, or save up first because I have siblings that I'm taking care of and so forth. So diversity, equity, inclusion can mean so much to a person, right? And to an institution. In your experience with Berkeley, how would you describe the institution's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, whatever that means to you and your experience there, from the honors, from student government, from admissions, any of that?
Sorry. For me, I think Berkeley was a great example of diversity and inclusion, because I attended Edward R. Murrow High School, and there were kids that looked like me in the school, but there weren't that many kids that looked like me in the school that I attended. So I was very appreciative that when I attended Berkeley, I didn't feel alone. And at the time, that meant a lot because there were a lot of different protests and there was just a lot going on in the news. So you wanted to feel safe and you wanted to feel like you mattered. You didn't want to just feel like a dollar sign in the campus that you attended. And luckily for me, Berkeley actually made me feel very welcomed. And when I also say diversity, I don't just mean background or where your parents came from or anything like that, but everything matters. Age, how big is your family? All that comes into play. And I was very appreciative of getting to learn and know people from all different walks of life. There were people that never thought they would be ever attending college or thought they were good enough to attend college because of someone in their life or where they came from or what their family was able to do and what they thought they couldn't do. And that helped me grow as a person because it helped me determine that whatever it is that I put my mind to, I can excel at. The only things that I can't do are the things that I tell myself I can't do. I had a friend, and I met her from day one. She had been going through her college experience for 10 years. So she was a little bit older than me, but she didn't get her degree yet. She had children, she was growing her family along the way, and she just had this really beautiful story that to me was inspired by strength. She didn't have much family. She just had her children and her husband, but she kept going. And that for me, you don't meet people like that every day. You don't meet people that no matter what, keep going. No matter how many failures knock on their door, they keep stepping over them and facing them with a sense of bravery and a sense of strength. And that part, I was happy and lucky to have experienced at Berkeley because you don't always get that with other schools. With some schools, you get, you're surrounded by only freshmen, only kids who just came straight out of high school, and that's great. It's very easy to relate to people that are in, kind of like the same bubble as you. But to be able to hear, the experiences of other people, it can motivate you to do more for yourself or to do more for others if, that is something that you're called to do. But diversity, of course, when you go to college, it becomes a different meaning than what you thought it was before. I thought diversity when I was in college had only something to do with color. And I learned in college that it's not always that broad or that narrow. Diversity and inclusion can mean everything under the sun. It only means you only limit it to what you think or don't think it is. And college kind of breaks all those glass ceilings for you. Everything you thought about this life or everything you thought about this person or that person, you learn and, you grow from it. And I'm, still learning, still growing. I don't have it all, together yet, but to me, that's what diversity in Berkeley was. And I hope that, hopefully you can experience that too.
Wonderful. Love it. Again, I'm seeing the smiles, and as people are reviewing this, in hindsight, when it's streaming, again, this is all authentic dialogues and so forth. And again, if you love, just having this opportunity to speak with alums, speak with admissions recruiters and so forth, this is a component of what we're going to be doing here at the College Corner. Again, we're trying to just change things up a bit, right? We want to change the conversations and dialogue that we're having just about college to get more insights that you typically wouldn't find anywhere else. So this is an exclusive. So again, tell your friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. Jersey City Public Library, the College Corner, GiO2College. Again, we'll always have sessions like this as well. So again, if you like this, there's more to come. So one of the things that you led off talking about was the cost of attendance. You have some schools that are, stay in state because it's going to be free and or whatnot. You have other schools that, hey, I want to go there, but whoa, why is it $60,000? Like, I don't see 60,000. Like, how's that happening? Right. So that can be very intimidating, right? Where some colleges can cost more than some households are making. So how would you say that you were able to finance your education both during and post-college?
I was lucky enough to have been offered a 100% scholarship from Berkeley College. The condition was that as an honors student, you stay in, you're enrolled in school for 3 semesters as opposed to 2 a year. So that meant, when everyone had their summer break from May, April until September, I was in school. I was still doing, the full track. And not a lot of people are lucky enough to say, the school covered everything for them. My twin sister had enrolled in Berkeley, and even though she didn't get a full scholarship at the time, she was still provided with enough grants and scholarship to help her at least be comfortable when she had to make whatever payments it was out of pocket or pay whatever loans it was. And Berkeley also stays on top of you. If you are one of those students that has to take out a loan or you need a better understanding of your financial package, you can always speak with a financial advisor. They're always at the Midtown campus. I remember they were always right there on the 2nd floor, so you can see them as soon as you come in. And for me, even though I didn't have anything to pay, I still was always knocking at their door like, hey, did you get my FAFSA? Hey, did you get, this scholarship payment? Or hey, are my grades up to par for this? And for me, that helped me understand financial literacy a lot more. That's something that you're not exposed to in high school. And that's something that I wish I was exposed to in high school. But the financial aid department doesn't only stop at FAFSA. If you have questions about budgeting yourself, if you need help, managing your money, financial aid was there for me, and they were there for a lot of other students at that time. But again, I'm thankful to have had that scholarship. Whichever school you decide, if they're offering you a scholarship or if they're not, make sure that they are doing something for you that is making you happy, and you're also going to be able to fulfill your college dreams after.
And I love, again, the quotables, right? It's that fine print. They gave me money, but, right, I still have to do these other things. So many times when students are afforded an award package, they think, oh, they gave it to me this year, I'm locked in forever. I I still have to keep my grades up. I still have to make sure I'm submitting my FAFSA. I have to do that CSS profile in some cases, right? So you want to make sure that you're always in compliance. And again, October 1st is just around the corner. So again, for those of you that are applying to college, just know that that FAFSA will open up October 1st. And here at GiO2College, we always say try to apply by October 31st, you know, Halloween trick or treat, and you want that money. So that is your treat. So make sure you submit that FAFSA by the end of October. So that way you're taking care of your money issues in the month of October ahead of the game. And that will always, you know, set you shoulders apart, because in that way you're able to really focus in on your classes, because, you know, oftentimes a mistake that first year students will make is that they're just getting into school and they're like, oh, I'm trying to make friends and so forth and doing this and doing that. And then they miss the fact that the FAFSA just opened for the following academic year. So you want to make sure that you're always on top of it, especially if you decide that you want to dorm, live on campus, and things of that nature, as it's very important to make sure that you're sustaining that, that award package as best as you can. And then the other narrative about your twin sister, right? There are ways to navigate colleges in which your initial award package can then improve through continuing scholarships and so forth. So continue to apply yourself, getting involved with clubs and organizations, getting a job and so forth, increasing your GPA. Because when you start in college, you're starting with the clean slate. You got in, now we're here to rebuild. You can rebrand yourself, right? And so if you weren't that straight A student in high school, now you can be that straight A student in college. And you should be that straight A student in college, or strive to be, right? And if you feel that you're short, there are a number of resources available at the college to then help you. That is what they're there for, right? So you really have to go out of your way to miss out on those opportunities. So we want to make sure that you're aware of that. Because again, as we approach, you know, November, when we start talking about the FAFSA and how to finance college, yeah, a lot of it will just come from the schools that you apply to, right? So Berkeley was a great fit in this case, right? Paid for everything, offered the supports inside and outside of the classroom, multiple campuses in case you want to switch things up a bit, right? Those are all considerations that you want to have in mind. And again, you might not think about all those things up front. Those schools won't necessarily tell you right out the gate if they're going to admit you. And those honors programs, right? It's competitive, right? So it's not that everyone can come in with an open door. You still have to make sure that you're meeting those marks, right? So all things to keep in mind. So we just have a few more questions that we want to get through. Again, for this particular session, and we'll also leave off with some essay writing tips that we'll expound on for our next session on October 6th. So again, we're always open to feedback. You can always reach out to the Jersey City Public Library. If there's certain schools, alum that you want to see here represented, challenge us, we'll go out, we'll go get them. Or if you want us to bring Berkeley back, we can do that as well. But again, we love having this dynamic, having these conversations, having this dialogue to ensure that we're able to make things expand from there. And so we want to also be mindful of our live guests that we have here as well. Okay, great. So actually, I'll pose that question. So Amina asks, I would like to talk or learn about not having or seeing a specific major that fits in or is required for my future career, right? So you talked about how you decided to pursue marketing, and there was an aspect of it that kind of connected with psychology, though you're not necessarily becoming like a marketer at like an ad agency or something like that. How would you say that you were able to make that that connection between marketing and psychology? Did you know that before? Did someone at Berkeley help you with identifying that? Or did you do like a personality profile test to like identify different things that you wanted to do? Like, how did that psychology marketing thing come about for you?
Actually, at the time, I remember I had a list of schools that I thought I was going to go to. And I remember going into Berkeley for an open house one day, and the director of high school admissions at the time, her name was Damaris. I remember she pulled me to the side and she said, "Sweetheart, we don't offer psychology." And she kind of seen the expression on my face go from super motivated to, kind of disappointed. And she was the one that kind of instilled that marketing degree into my head. And I didn't realize it then, but I'm so super appreciative of it now. When I was growing up, my mother always had my sister involved in some sort of business workshop. She always said that she wanted my sister and I to understand business. And she didn't want anyone taking advantage of us when we got older. So that's why she always felt like business was something, whether it just be a course or a class. I never thought that business would actually be what I, ended up, graduating with. But I had decided I want my own firm. I want my own practice. I can still, reach my psychology goal, but I can do it after. And then I can bridge the two together so I can market my business, but also have, the accolades and the experience to actually be a licensed psychologist or psychiatrist. And I decided that one day I'm going to have my doctorate in psychology, but I'm also going to have that marketing degree to be my safety net and my cushion. So this way I know how to market my brand and market my own firm and actually be able to manage and handle it. There are a lot of things that people don't tell you all are included within a business: how to manage employees, how to find employees, how to, budget and manage payroll. And just being able to have gotten a little taste of that, something that I never thought that I would ever do, was something that inspired me. I had what really actually kind of made me set in the marketing field. Berkeley offered students to sit in on actual classes that were going on that semester. And the professor, Dr. Lance Erickson at the time, he was giving, I think it was consumer behavior, and I'm not sure what the other course was, but I actually got to sit in 2 classes that day while I was still a high school student. And I think that was what did it for me. I had did that with St. John's for psychology and other schools for psychology, but they were kind of like those really big, scary and intimidating lecture halls with 1,000 students. And for me, that was terrifying because I come from a big family, but I'm still not used to that many people, around me. And Berkeley was very small. It was very intimate in a very close setting. So that, I think, is what sold me more. Of course, I never thought I had, the brain for marketing, but I'm actually really good at it now. And that's how I chose marketing. And hopefully in the future, in 2 years, 3 years from now, I'll have psychology as well.
Wonderful. And so there's, again, so many different ways that you can go about finding that path for you. And, whether it's, something where you work in reverse, right? You're on college board, and you're exploring careers, and then you research the majors that can lead you into that particular career. Or you might have an interest in like culinary arts. And if you don't see culinary arts, you start to freak out. But then you start to learn that you might find that under hospitality, and hospitality may be listed under business management. It's like, whoa, I just got 3 degrees away from culinary arts, but then I'm still finding it through this particular section. Or even food science, right? To kind of lead in that way. So different schools may call a particular major a different name, right? But if you have a gist or an understanding of what it is that you want to do, would like to do, just having those conversations. Again, you don't have to have everything figured out. And so certainly cast a wide net, and make sure that with that net, that includes everything that you're interested in. So if it's psychology, but then it's also marketing. So having about 3 to 5 majors that you're interested in helps, because then if I decide to change my major, I don't necessarily have to change my school. But then as I'm looking at the schools that I'm considering, how many of them have 3 to 4 of those majors that I'm interested in? Like that may be a factor of selection for you. As we talk about the college selection process and what colleges are looking for in terms of grades and test scores and this and that extracurricular activity, but what is it that you're looking for, right? Are you looking for that intimate environment? Are you looking for supports? Are you looking for, career preparation? Are you looking for being in an urban environment, suburban environment, rural environment, a large setting, small setting, right? Those things play a factor into what works best for you. And again, you're going to hear a variety of different experiences, a variety of different stories. And again, it's all helpful context for you. So the more you have these conversations with others, you can utilize the same questions that we even presented here. But the great thing too, is that sometimes opposites attract. Maybe you went to a really small high school and you want to go to a really big college, or you went to a really big high school and you want to go to a really small college, right? And how do you learn best as a student? Because this is where it really starts to matter, right? Because you might have attended college or high school where, it was a public school and it was free, but now there's money on the line, as we talked about, right, with scholarships and fine print and things that you have to be responsible for. So you always want to keep those things in mind, but you don't really have to lock in your major until like your junior year in college. So there's a lot of time that you have, but by having these conversations now, you're going to find yourself in a better situation, or you might just find out, what, I don't like architecture, right? Or I don't like biology, but I can go in these other directions. So sometimes when you find out what you don't like, then it helps you with finding out things that can work out for you as well. So we talked about support services. And so the last two questions are along those lines of giving back, right? So what advice would you give for anyone who's seeking to follow in your footsteps? What are some of the things that you would have done differently if you were able to talk to yourself, back then with the insights that you've been able to gain to date?
The biggest insight that if I could tell, my 18-year-old self fresh into college, never sell yourself short. That was something that I kind of held on to, especially towards the end of my college career, because I kind of did a big 180 turnaround. I was super involved, straight A student, almost on that perfect kind of path. And then things kind of switched up a little bit. And I kind of became that D, almost F student. And I had no motivation. And that was because I didn't really believe in myself. I kept telling myself that I couldn't do these things or that I can't do these things because of certain circumstances, when in reality, I was only standing in my own way. So the biggest piece of advice to you guys, please don't stand in your way. Whatever it is that's standing in your way, don't let it be yourself. Always be the biggest advocate for yourself. Always be the person that can speak up for yourself when nobody else can. Believe in yourself when you feel that nobody else can. And it's very cliche. I know I sound like a Disney movie, but it really, really matters, because college is all about you. It's all about what you make it, not mom, not dad, not your best friend, not your cousin, not your sister. It's all about what you choose to do, how you choose to do it. And in the end, that's what's going to make or break your college experience. So make sure that every decision that you do, you believe in yourself to the full 1000%. Never tell yourself that you can't do something, because if you can't do something, it wouldn't have been, sitting right in front of you. The opportunity wouldn't have walked in front of your door. And always do something that makes yourself happy. Don't forget to have a little bit of fun. College is some serious work. But one thing that I could have done a little bit differently was not take myself too seriously. I put too much weight on my shoulders to the point where I kind of wanted to break away from college altogether. And I didn't give myself that time to, actually be a teenager or be a student and experience the full college life. I was, strictly books. So leave a little bit of room for yourself to enjoy, whether it be your campus, whether it be a new environment that you're in, new friends, and new setting. Enjoy it all, because that time goes by quicker than you think. And I laughed when people told me that, and I just graduated and it feels like I just graduated high school. So enjoy it. Enjoy every minute. Do everything you can, and make sure you have a good story to tell in 10, 20 years from now.
See, and listen, none of this was planned, none of this was scripted. This is all authentic. So I was going to transition right into this college essay writing tips that I wanted to share with you all. And the last thing you heard, right, was that story, right? Like, this is your story, this is your narrative, right? This is your opportunity to afford yourself that grace. And so when you're thinking about what's going to root me in this for the long haul, right? Whether it's the next 4 years, the next 5 years, if I go on to graduate school and so forth, what is really going to root me in this? So as we talked about working in reverse, we want to share out just 10 tips. And again, we'll expound on this in other sessions. But again, while you already have your pen and your paper handy, for those of you that are looking for inspiration, right? As you all heard for the past hour that we've been on this session, just the different things that may come up for you in your collegiate experience, right? Those are also things that you want to highlight in your college essay too, right? And so we're just going to take a quick moment just to provide you all with some of these insights, and we'll just share screen momentarily. And again, we'll run through them. And again, Amina, if we can have you make sure that you're doing that attendance sheet that's in the chat, that will help as well. We appreciate that. We share screen. And boom. Wonderful. So some of the things that we've heard about, right? Remembering your purpose, right? So whether you're in school and you're thinking about that purpose, or you're a senior in high school and you're about to write your college essay, it's not an essay just about you and your family and how much you love your twin sister, right? It's about, what does my relationship with my twin sister have to do with my relationship in terms of what I want to do for myself in college, and how will college help me, right? So you always want to be able to connect that. And if you don't have the opportunity to do an interview like we just did today, use your essay to be that interview, right? So when you submit your test scores, you submit your resume, you submit your transcripts and so forth, let your essay serve as your interview in case you don't get it and you want to highlight things that are perhaps not reflected anywhere else in your application, right? Step 2, and again, the aim is just to write down the first piece of this. We'll highlight these on other sessions, but connect everything to your ultimate goal, right? So sometimes you might feel that you're being asked an unrelated question, but keep in mind, again, everything connects back to why you want to go to college, right? So when we ask about your major, let that tie into your interest in college. When we ask about, what does diversity, equity, inclusion mean to you, you want to make sure that you're connecting that back to what you anticipate experiencing in college as well, right? And so just keep those things in mind, especially when it comes to those essays, as your essays can help distinguish between a student that has, or two students rather, that have the same academic profile. Let's say I have two students that both have an 85 GPA, both have B averages. And, because of the pandemic, neither of them have to take the SATs, right? That essay will become the defining criteria for which student I then will ultimately admit into my institution, right? Highlighting the mission in your supplemental essays, right? So every single college, whether it's Berkeley, whether it's Rutgers, William Patterson, St. Peter's University, they all have a mission statement that makes them unique, right? Whether it's providing spaces for affordable education, access to higher education, it's globally minded citizens and so forth, right? Whatever it is, that's a part of the fabric of that particular institution. So when you're writing those essays, make sure that you're including that, especially in those supplemental essays when they say, why Berkeley, right? You want to make sure Berkeley feels that they are truly your top choice for all the reasons that you've heard Kaliah highlight as well, because that's so important to knowing for the institution that if I accept you, you're most likely going to accept me as well. And there's so many different ways, so many different topics that you can address. And so don't feel like I need to have this one essay that's going to lock me into this particular school. They may not want to hear about you being a straight A student. They may want to hear about your struggle. How do you deal with adversity? They may want to hear about, a time where you presented with a challenge and you were able to troubleshoot, right? How have you been able to grow, right? They want to hear more about your weaknesses than your strengths, right? Because they see you glowing in all ways. How can you be vulnerable in your essay? What are ways that you can grow? What are ways that you're looking forward to grow? Because yes, you are that package, right? But you also want to show that there's various aspects of that package as well. And that's why it helps to keep in mind that there's no silver bullet, as every institution is looking for something different, right? Intrinsic qualities, right? So tonight we didn't invite, a recruiter to come on and talk about Berkeley and how many students they enroll and all the different things that they can do. We invited an alum to come and highlight the intrinsic qualities, those things that stand out, that make that connection very personal for Berkeley College, right? And that's what you want to capture in your essay. It's not that I just want to go to the school because it's a school and they have these rankings, but no, it's because I have this connection to this school. It's because I know an alum there and that person has impacted me in such a way. You heard the way that we talked about mahogany, right? Where it was, it wasn't just that I applied and this person came and gave a presentation, but I really connected and resonated with this individual, right? So those intrinsic qualities that will hold you, not only while you're applying to an institution, but even as you're encountering some adversity you need to push through and finding reasons to continue on with your path. And this locks it in here, right? Showing depth. We all want to make six figures. We all want to make $1 million, right? But when you have to pull those all-nighters, right, you want to show what is connecting you to that particular major, connecting you to that particular institution, and reminding yourself along the way, I chose this college, right? I chose to pursue college at this time. I knew that there was a pandemic. I knew that I could wait. I knew that there were other paths that I could go. I knew that there were other schools that I could go to, but why this particular school? Why do I feel that I need higher education? Why do I feel that I want to go to college? What are my reasons? It's not just someone told me to go, but what is going to be my rooting cause, right? So that way, again, as things get a little rough, or as I'm balancing multiple things and I'm trying to manage my time, I know that I'm always going to find time for this because this is something that is personal and near and dear to my heart, right? So always show depth when you're thinking about that. And then connecting the dots, right? So Kaliah could have came on and said, hey, I'm a twin and I'm a straight A student. So of course I want to go to college. Okay, but why Berkeley? And you heard all those reasons, right? Not only am I a first generation student, but I'm also looking to expand a bit. I thought I was going to go to an HBCU. I thought I was going to go into marketing. I thought I was going to be the celebrity, which she still will be. Don't worry about that. She still will be, right? But there's so many different aspects that you're going to encounter, but you have to make those connections stick. So, right? So you don't want to just assume that, oh, I'm from New York, so you know what that means. No, we don't. But what does it mean for you, right? So draw out what those means for you. So if it's, I want to pursue marketing, right? How did I get connected to marketing? I want to pursue psychology. What's rooting me or connecting me to psychology? What's driving me, right? Is it that I want to look at, I want to be a child psychologist, right? I want to look at the rights that the children need, right? And how they're not being serviced in foster care environments, or how we need to allocate more funding towards foster care. There's so many different avenues that I can go. Be sure to tell your story. And that's the opportunity that you have with your essay, right? And perhaps the most important piece of this is the Trinity. And I also think about this in the context of like a movie, right? When we think about essays, think about like a movie, right? What is your essay about? How are you going to illustrate that story? And why is this topic significant to your aspirations, right? So that essay could be, you know what, I'm a first generation student coming out of Brooklyn, pursuing college. I want to become a psychologist at some point, but I do well within marketing, but I'm also a leader in my community and I want to take over student government. Great. So how are we going to illustrate all of that for you? Well, I'm going to highlight my experiences, and this could be Kaliah in terms of like going to graduate school, right? Like, yeah, I was killing the game at Berkeley. I was involved in student government. I was helping out in admissions and so forth, coming on, doing sessions. I encountered some bumps along the way, right? And I also realized how much I've grown as a person, my mindset, my outlook, right? And that shift in terms of mindset and outlook is the reason why psychology is so important to me, because I also want to be able to give back and help out others that may be on that same trajectory, because there are some signs that we may be able to see visibly. There may be signs and symptoms that we won't. And I want to be able to be in tune with that and inspire the changes and supports that are necessary to allow others to develop and grow in those ways, right? So that's all the aspects of college essay writing, something that's going to root me to what it is that I'm trying to do and highlighting that in different ways. Taste the rainbow. Again, we talked about there being no silver bullet. It's the same way when it comes to writing essays, right? There are various essay prompts. Choose them all. Do a free write. See what connects with you. And if you're not someone that likes to write, jump on Zoom, press record, and just talk what you would then write about, right? And just the more you talk out your thoughts, throwing them on paper, doing a free write where you're not worried about your grammar, you're not worried about your spelling, you're not worried about punctuation, just worry about your thoughts, those big ideas, you're going to find something that really connects you and say, ooh, wow, I was just talking about my interest in Berkeley because they had all these different campuses, but now it's just showing me even more reasons why I'm enjoying Berkeley, right? And so it allows you to delve into more of the reasons that you're choosing the schools that you are. And you're also learning something more about you and what you're looking for. And the great thing about writing on different essay prompts is that you can still reuse and repackage some of that information for your interviews that you may have down the road, or even conversation that you may have. And just like we've done today, use your resources, have conversations like we've just done today with students, with alumni, with college recruiters, with your teachers, with your principals, with our representatives and staff members at Jersey City Public Library, right? If anyone's been involved with college or they know someone that's going to college, just having those conversations and insights about how they chose their college, how they chose their major, how they chose their career, things that they would do differently, and all those insights and nuances that you may not find in other places. So again, it's very important to use your resources, and especially if you know that a school is one of your top choices, and you're reaching out to them saying, hey, here's the initial draft of my essay, or hey, I met you at this college fair, or hey, I'm on Zoom, there's not a lot of people here. You mind if we chat for a little bit, right? There's so many different avenues and ways of being able to show demonstrated interest. So again, these are just our top 10 tips for college essay writing. Again, join us again. We're going to have another session on October 6th, in which we're going to invite more representatives to come, share out their experiences. We're going to have a success panel. We're going to invite recruiters to come and so forth. So again, we want to make sure that you are aware of that. We want to thank the Jersey City Public Library for this opportunity to have this session. We want to thank Kaliah for coming, sharing those insights, bearing her soul, and sharing the ups, the downs, the highs, the lows, with everything that's come across in her college experience and beyond, as well as her dreams and her aspirations. So we can all speak that into the universe and hope that they will manifest in that way. We want to thank our guests that jumped on this session live in person, that didn't wait for it to get streamed on YouTube and other places as well. And again, we want to make sure that we're continuing to spread the word, as this is all very important in terms of making the college experience something that is inviting, welcoming, and uplifting for everyone, especially during these times. So thank you all for your commitment here. And I'll turn things back over to Ashley to close out for us.
Can I just say one thing that I forgot to before?
Of course you can.
When you asked me about how I was able to pay for school, or about the finances, there was a book that my aunt and several of my teachers introduced me to. You can get it off of Amazon. I believe Barnes and Nobles has it. It is called The Ultimate Scholarship Book. They come up with a new one every year. It's about 1,000 pages long, and you can get a scholarship if you wear glasses, if you have a twin, if you come from a big family. There's a bunch of different ways that you can get a scholarship. And they have different application processes. Some require you to do an essay, others do not. Some require recommendations, others do not. But there's just a bunch of stuff in there, a bunch of things to apply to. So there's 100 different ways you could get money for school with that book.
The most important book in the library. So again, if you needed another reason to visit Jersey City Public Library, specifically the branch that Ashley is at, because I tell you, Jersey City is great, but I'm telling you, Ashley is even better. So make sure that you're checking out the books and resources that you'll have. Again, the scholarship search is something that's all year round. It's not just one time. So again, we'll definitely might even invite Kaliah to come back and touch on financial aid and resources and so forth for our November session as well. But Ashley, go ahead.
Yep. So thank you again to Giovanni and to Kaliah for joining us tonight. Your story was really great and super insightful. Thank you so much to Amina for joining us. Amina, I'm going to add you to our mailing list so you have information about the second session. And this session is recorded and will be accessible on the Jersey City Free Public Library YouTube page under the College and Career Readiness playlist. It'll be up probably by the end of the week, so you can always come back and rewatch it. So thank you again to our guests. I'm going to stop recording.
Thank you for having me.